Hello everyone, welcome back to another video where today you're going to be getting my review of the Space Babies, my spoiler review of the Space Babies to be exact. I did a little spoiler-free review back when I saw this early at a screening, but this is going to be my full review, and if you're thinking, bloody hell, you got this out early, that's why, because I've already seen it. So this is going to be my spoilery thoughts. First of all, before we get into anything else, the title sequence. Brand new, beautiful, I love it. Obviously it's not that new, but it's like, they added a whole new little sequence with like more planets and stars, and then the logo is actually 3D now, and it sort of blends in a really nice way. They have like some effects over the top of it. I much prefer this to the way it sort of did it in the 60th and in Church on Ruby Road. So yeah, the title sequence got fixed, guys. Big news. Elsewhere though, one thing I want to say immediately, and I sort of said this in my spoiler-free video, but Shuzi Gatwa and Millie Gibson's chemistry in this is absolutely perfect. They feel like a very modern companion Doctor duo without it feeling overly pandery to Gen Z. Like, I was really worried when I started hearing reports that like this was a modern TARDIS team, that they were going to start mentioning things like TikTok and stuff like that. I don't know why. I just had kind of that assumption that it would be very like on the nose and very like, how do you do, fellow kids? But it's not. They feel like how people my age, I'm 20, would speak without it being, you know, too on the nose. Talking in a bit more chronological order though, we get like about a 10-minute opening scene, basically going through all the basics very quickly. We go through the TARDIS going back to the Jurassic Age with them landing in Wyoming. There's the butterfly effect gag, which a lot of people were wondering how's that going to be resolved. Turns out that the Doctor just basically frees the butterfly and revives it. I heard some people say at the premiere that maybe he used regeneration energy. I'm not 100% sure on that. I assumed he just breathed into it to kind of give it life, but that's what stops the butterfly effect from taking place, because the butterfly is still alive. I thought it was interesting that he said he had a butterfly effect compensator on the TARDIS. I don't know why you'd ever switch that off, to be honest. I think you'd want to keep that on wherever you landed, because God knows what would happen otherwise. But yeah, I think more than anything, that was just kind of a quick opening gag. On the Doctor himself, there were some really, really nice moments with him. Something I particularly found interesting with Gatwa's Doctor in this episode is he's willing to say where he's from and all of that, which is a step up from, obviously, like 13, for example, who was very, very reluctant to say anything about that. But he also doesn't want to go into too much detail. He's like, yep, the planet's gone. The planet's gone. Like, you could see Ruby trying to question him and get more out of him. He's like, no, it's gone. There's a bit where they're on the space station and they're looking out at space. And Ruby says, oh, but your planet's gone. How do you keep going? And he's like, for days like this, Ruby Sunday, look at this. And yeah, there's a lot of end of the world beats to this story, particularly, I think, with things like the phone, where Millie Gibson gets a call with him. And that was very end of the world-esque. And I know some people will probably think that's a bit too repetitive. For me, I don't mind them sort of doing some similar beats, because this is for a brand new audience, so I think that's fine. The dialogue in general is just really funny. There's a lot of funny lines right from the offset, particularly as well surrounding the babies. One of the lines for the Doctor I really liked early on is, yeah, half the universe is basically knackered babes, which is like a nice little reference to Flux, but also kind of also true at the same time. Getting into the actual plot of the episode though, the Space Babies themselves. So the Doctor and Ruby arrive on this ship that is manned by several babies who can speak, and there's a big mystery because, first of all, they encounter the bogeyman downstairs before heading upstairs to see the babies who run the station, or seemingly run the station. And there's a really funny bit where they're in the lift and they've just seen the bogeyman, and the Doctor covers Ruby's eyes. She's like terrified of it, which is great. And yeah, a lot of the comedy, especially with the babies, is very funny. Like the bit where they're all like, oh my god, it's Mum and Daddy. And they're like, no, definitely not. No, we're not your Mum and Dad. We're not doing that. I think the facial expressions of both just makes it so fun to watch. But yeah, on the topic of the babies, one of my slight criticisms of this episode would be, is while I think the babies were generally funny, I think sometimes when they made the mouths move, like, that was the one part of the CGI that I wasn't, like, completely convinced by. Everything else, particularly things like shots of the TARDIS in orbit and in space, and the space station moving, looked fantastic, and space itself looked great. The babies themselves, when they're trying to speak, is the one thing where I'm not completely sold. I do think it almost would have looked better they just had the babies almost be telepathic, if you get what I mean. So they don't actually, their mouths don't actually move, but they are speaking. Does that make sense? But that is a very minor complaint. I understand that it's quite a goofy premise to make look convincing, and otherwise, I thought they did a good job with it. I particularly like, as a running gag, the nanny. So the nanny is what we believe to be a, artificial intelligence system, but turns out to be a woman, the last surviving, adult woman on the ship, who is basically acting as their nanny from afar because she doesn't want to see them get hurt in person, and she doesn't want them to see her get hurt in person. But there's a really funny gag where there's this thing called the nanny filter, where essentially she'll start, beginning to swear, and it'll just, say, expletive removed. And it's very funny. It's very good. I liked that a lot. This episode did have me laughing at multiple points. Probably more so than most series openers do, which is a good thing. I think the one thing I will say as well on the topic of the general plot and the structure of it is, I did think the bogeyman, I was a little bit confused because obviously it's revealed that the bogeyman is basically a construct of the baby's imagination, and we basically see that this ship can construct things from the minds of people, and there's a very specific thing that it constructs, which we'll get to in a sec. But obviously it's chasing them early on, and it's very much framed to be, evil and after the babies. Obviously, there is a scene where a baby survives being attacked by one, which kind of makes you think, oh, maybe it's not so bad. But towards the end, the nanny woman basically tries to eject it into space to save the babies, and the Doctor goes, oh no, it's the last of its kind. And that's kind of echoing himself, because there's this really nice scene where the Doctor talks to the captain of the ship, Poppy, and he's like, there's only one of me in the whole universe, and that's great, because these babies, whilst they look like babies, are actually intelligent and have aged into adults, but they look and sound and act like babies for the most part. But anyway, yeah, so that theme gets revisited with the bogeyman, where he's like, oh, this is also the last of its kind, so the Doctor saves it. But it turns out, I think that the bogeyman was supposed to be scary because the Doctor says, oh, it's screaming at 17 hertz, which is exactly the kind of frequency that's supposed to scare you. So I think it was supposed to be scary, designed to be scary by the babies, and that was intentional, and that it's not deliberately evil, I think is what was meant by that. But I was just a bit confused by it because it still looked like it was attacking them at multiple points. If anyone has any more clarity on that, feel free to let me know. I have only seen this the one time. I thought pacing for the most part was quite good. I mean, the opening does go very, very quickly, but I think, for the most part that works. You're getting all the essentials out of the way. The thing I do want to talk about particularly is the snow motif. So when the Doctor and Millie sort of stop and they're about to, go and help out, there's a scene where they talk about, obviously, Ruby being found, and it kind of being a coincidence that all these babies need a new home, and that was like her, basically. And the Doctor has a flashback moment to the church, but the memories changed, and snow begins to fall on the actual ship where they are. And the memory begins to change and show the mum pointing at the Doctor with a very bony hand, and he's like, oh, the memory's changing. And whenever the idea of going back to the church on Ruby Road is floated, snow starts to fall again, and the Doctor says at the end of the episode, I cannot take you there. It would cause a paradox that would rip through the universe. It's the one thing I cannot do. And I think there's definitely something being built up there. Like, the Doctor is very concerned by Ruby. At the end of the episode, we see a DNA scan of her, which implies there's something more to her than we know. I'm assuming that's going to be expanded on throughout the series, particularly something like Legend of Ruby Sunday. But yeah, it basically turns out that the bogeyman is made of the actual bogies of the babies, and basically in order to get to a planet to get these babies to safety, they use the remaining methane the babies created with their nappies to basically boost this space station that's stationary to planet's orbit. I also thought there was some really interesting social commentary with the kind of line about, oh, well, they don't let us not have babies, you're supposed to legally have babies, but they don't want to take care of them afterwards. And Millie goes, yeah, that's not that strange. I just thought stuff like that was really nice, very much in the same vein as Planet of the Ute, not too, obvious, but it felt like really, good social commentary, in my opinion. I thought it really worked well. I know some people are probably going to be very annoyed at it, but for me, I think it worked. If I had another slight criticism as well, I'd say that towards the end, Ruby gets a TARDIS key, which is kind of the customary thing new companions get. They get like a nice TARDIS key, and it's like a moment of, oh, you're joining the TARDIS officially. For me personally, I think I would have liked to have seen that happen a few episodes down the line, because I feel that, you know, Ruby is definitely companion material, and there's this really nice scene where she says, if you think I'm going to leave you, think again, let's go. And I think that's the moment where the Doctor is sold on her as his future companion. But I did think these characters haven't been challenged that much. They haven't faced like a world-ending threat yet. I almost feel like that would have had more of an impact, say if they were really, really in danger, then she could have earned her stripes that way. I know they said they almost died, but I think by the standards of Doctor Who, this was quite, not low stakes, but you know what I mean? It's not like the end of the world or anything like that. Oh yeah, something else I keep noticing as a general motif while we're just going through this. This isn't the most structured review, for which I can only apologise. I'm trying to get every point across that I wanted to make. The TARDIS keeps landing more and more abruptly, which I think is kind of interesting, and I'm wondering if that's going to go anywhere, because obviously we know that Russell said that the vortex, that having sparks is going to be relevant, and it looks like the TARDIS is really being chucked about in this new era, so I'm wondering if time itself is maybe a bit unstable. Also, we got to see a next time trailer. I'm not going to go into too much detail on it, because the next video you'll see from me will be my Devil's Cord review. I'm not expecting that to be as in-depth as this is, because obviously I'll be doing that one live. But what I will say is I thought it was very interesting that the next time trailer explicitly said the Toymaker said his legions were coming, and then it shows a picture of Jinx Monsoon's Maestro character. So yes, she is part of this new pantheon of gods that Russell is putting together, which I thought was very, very exciting. Overall, a good episode, very fun. I think whilst there were plenty of good Doctor moments, and, you know, he really does just sell himself as the Doctor immediately for me, I am looking forward to seeing more of this Doctor's teeth. And I think that goes for the companion Ruby Sunday as well. I want to see them really go through some trauma. You know, I really want to see them go through some stuff that's rough. It's one of those episodes that I don't think it's ever going to be at, like, the top of lists. I think that's kind of by design. It's breaking you into this new era of Doctor Who. And I think it does it well. It feels familiar, but also the comedic timings feel new. And also this dynamic is really what makes it feel fresh, as I say. It doesn't really feel like a dynamic we've seen before, necessarily. I really liked, actually, towards the end, even though I said that the TARDIS key could have come a little bit later, I think the scene where she basically says, come on then, let's go on an adventure, and I'll tell you where we're going. That was really nice, and I thought that was a really nice moment. There was lots of great character moments in this. I thought it was really interesting as well that Carla and Cherry Sunday get to learn about the TARDIS and the Doctor properly at the end of this first episode, so we're not doing a thing like we did with some other companions where their families aren't really told till much, much later. It's a thing of, oh no, we are making sure they're involved right away, and in fact the Doctor is very insistent on Ruby calling her mum, which implies that he kind of values family and stuff more than perhaps the Ninth Doctor did, which makes me think if the Doctor's time as 14 maybe had an impact on him possibly, because before the Doctor had a somewhat like dismissive attitude, at least early on, towards the families. Eventually he did embrace them, but there was a really funny moment where the Doctor said, and don't slap me, which I thought was really good. Like, yeah, the Doctor's learned from that, he doesn't want that anymore. Yeah, there's a lot of good comedic moments here, and a lot of moments that really do sell Ncuti as the Doctor. I think I do just want that serious moment to come, and I'm sure it will. I just want, like, a big moment for Ncuti, and I'm sure it's coming. Maybe it'll come in the Devil's Cord. I haven't seen it yet, so I couldn't tell you. Also, shout out to that one baby, I think his name's Eric, that just looks constantly depressed the whole time. That was great, as well as the Captain Poppy. She was fun too. I'm sure those babies in 10, 20 years' time will have great fun looking back on this. But I think that wraps up this video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to give it a like, comment down below your thoughts, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.